FMS is just on fire with all of their new releases. I'm running out of space here to display them in the workshop. I've got them tucked underneath the shelves over here. I got a display shelf over there. And now I gotta find space for the new H1 Hummer. This thing is insane. It's got tons of scale detail on it, tons of functionality. Let's head over to the bench and take a look. Prepare to have your mind blown, RC drivers. There's a lot going on in this model. I tore it down so you could see some of the inner workings, but let's start off with the basics. It's a ready to run. It comes out of the box just like this. It's available in this black painted body, or they have a really bright yellow body as well. You've probably seen it online, looks really good. Also inside the styrofoam case is a 2.4 gigahertz transmitter, a newer version for FMS to control all the functionality of this, a instruction manual, a box wrench, and some extra license plate decals in case you want to swap those out. You are going to have to provide the battery, charger, and 4 AAA batteries to get this thing going. Now, I got a thing for Hummers because as you can see back there, I've got my Tamiya 110 scale Hummer. That was my very first review car back in the 1990s for RC Car Action magazine. Yeah, I've been reviewing this stuff longer than YouTube existed. So back to the rig. This thing is incredible. This is a painted body, absolutely flawless. Let's start off with the front with the grill guard. It looks very realistic. They got shackles and a large license plate. That looks like a Euro plate there, but really nicely molded. And then what you do is you actually flip this down. It just kind of snaps in place. And that's how you access the opening hood. So the hood itself's got a bunch of louvers on the front, and then look at all the lighting on this. Transparent lenses everywhere because there's LED lights behind it. There's 20 LED lights in total in this kit. That is absolutely insane to me. Now the headlights light up, they've got dim and high, the marker lights light up, the turn signals light up when you turn, or you could have hazards, the lights up on top of the windshield bar, red lenses in the back, and even clear lenses for the reverse lights. And the reverse lights light up white when you go in reverse. They finally got that. That's really cool to see. Now back up front here, the hood, you actually access the battery by opening up the hood. They've got these metal latches on each side. And once you pop these latches down, you simply pop the hood up and you can see everything you need to access inside of the model. So up front is actually the battery tray. Here is the connector for the speed controller. I believe it's a TX20 or TX2, I don't know, TX20 I think is what it says on there. And this might be a problem for some people. I actually don't have a connector that fits this properly. What I found is my new Spectrum pack that I got for my mini tees. The IC2 connector actually plugs in if you force it in. And once you force it in a couple times, it kind of stretches the plastic out on this and it fits. That's gonna be the option I'm gonna suggest to you. I'll have links in the video description below for that. I'll have links in the video description below for this. Please consider using those. Helps us out here on the channel. Doesn't cost you any extra. But here is the speaking controller receiver combo. They've got a distribution block here for all the different wires for the lighting. There's your on-off switch, and there's a bunch of just little details around in here. Really cool to look inside this thing. There is the servo for the steering wheel. Yeah, the steering wheel turns on the inside. We'll see that in a second. And then down below is the engine, and somewhere tucked in there I believe is the motor. That's the one thing I didn't take apart. This looks pretty complicated to get to. However, what's cool on this is they have a fan belt and a spinning fan, so as you drive along you'll never see it, but this actually all turns in there. It's just a cool talking point when you're talking about this model when it's on the shelf. But let's get back to the exterior here. The mirrors are folding, laser etched chrome emblems on the side, metal hinges throughout this, even the hood, the doors, the tailgate, which I'll show you in a minute. The door latches work, and then you got a detailed door and a fully detailed interior. Pedals, rubberized seats, there's a steering wheel that turns when you steer the truck itself, full dashboard setup, and then rear seats as well. They are rubberized just like the front. And then check this out. You go and pop the roof off, and there we go. See, there's the little pegs. They just go into these little slots here. But you could rock this thing without a roof on it. And you could actually go and fold down the windshield. And if you want to take out the rear glass and the rear panel section, there's just 2 screws here. You could go pull that out and just go topless. That's the way to go in summer, right? Rear fender's really cool with all the riveting on here. We already talked about all the lenses. The tail tailgate does fold down, and this one, if you got some big sausage fingers, it's gonna be really hard to take this thing up and down all the time. They've got these little clips here that go into a metal type of latch system. It's just really kind of difficult to access unless you have some tweezers or something. Tons of detail on the outside, so cool to look at. I mean, I've been staring at this thing for a couple days now. Now let's talk about what's underneath. I did take some of this apart for you guys. Let's start off, actually let's just start off with the detail underneath. So we've got a lower cage on this. Look at the cross members. There's an exhaust system. I think they really went overboard. Front skid on it, looks really good, right? And the only issue I have down here is there is a mix of hardware. There's 1.5 millimeter screws, there's Phillips head screws, there's actually 2 millimeter head screws holding the shocks in place. But anyway, let's go on to the wheels and tires actually before I get to the suspension. That's part of the suspension. Wheels and tires look pretty cool on this. I do like the tread on the tires. We've got some Goodyear Wrangler tires on this, and looks like some sort of military type of dish. I don't know exactly. I did measure it up. There's a 12 millimeter hex here, so if you want to go and adapt a different wheel on, you're gonna have to look for something that's a 12 millimeter. And then the suspension itself. We've got nice looking double wishbone suspension, really chunky looking arm, and the front pretty much mimics the rear. They use the same components, swapped it around because this is a 4-wheel steer model, which is so awesome. It has oil-filled shocks. Little odd the way it's built. I didn't take it completely apart. There's bladder inside of it, but we've got oil-filled shocks. They're a little bit sticky. I think they're gonna break in, so it's just something to note for you guys. Now, the drive line, it's got tons of functionality to it. Let's start off in the center. Here's the center transmission here. It's got a transfer case in the back, metal dog bones in the center. There's like 47, there's a ton of bearings. The transmission I didn't take apart. The motor, I believe, is in there, the electric motor, and this thing shifts. So it has all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. You could switch between the two through the transmitter. It also has a high speed and a low speed. That's very cool. And it has lockable differentials. This is crazy. Up front here is the locking differential setup. I did take that apart for you. Metal gears in that unit, metal shift fork for it. Really thin looking wires that go and shift those mechanisms inside these differential cases, front and rear. And then they have metal out drives with metal CV axles going out to the wheels. Very cool setup on this, really impressive. And you know, again, all these shifts there's actually a shift servo in the front for the front differential and one in the rear for the rear differential, obviously. The steering cranks are mounted on top of the axles, but that's about it, guys. I'm gonna go charge up the Spectrum Pack right now, and we're gonna head out just for a fun trail run with this. Here we are, guys, at my favorite local park. It's an absolutely beautiful day out. Check out that view. Isn't it awesome? Love coming here. Now, the trails here are gonna be perfect for the Hummer. Nice flat dirt trails. There's a couple spots I've picked out that will challenge it, but I'm really excited to try out all the functionality this rig has. The Hummer just looks so good driving down this shady path. Let me cycle through the lights for you guys. So headlights off. Now we gotta cycle through on. Low beam, high beam, all the amber lights, and back to off. Here's how fast it is in high gear. I'm at a walking pace, and as you can see, it's pulling away from me. Now switch it to low gear. And that's a pretty slow crawl. This will be a good challenge right here. It's a peaked rock. Let's see if we can get it over with that long wheelbase and low CG. Yeah, we're already hung up. To be fair, not too many crawlers clear this rock, small scale crawlers. But it instantly hangs up. We'll just take the long way. Come down through these tree roots here, see how it goes over those. Oh, we got that open diff. So now you just have to remember what channel changes that. There we go, that was it, the middle button. Just gotta learn those buttons. Well guys, what I found so far is I'm just keeping this thing in all-wheel drive with four-wheel steer because it's just so much more capable that way. It's so much more fun. I know the real one doesn't have rear steer, but it's an RC model. We got a little bit of leeway in what we do with these things. And it's just much more fun this way. There we go. I don't think I'll ever use rear-wheel drive on this. Not a lot of drag brake. It's just free rolling. So here's my last test spot, an uphill climb. I've got some loose dirt and rock, but while I was hiking over here, I heard the shift servo switch. There's a lot of servos in there, but I found out that it was actually the shift servo that switches the transmission from low to high. I had it in low, it switched it over to high, and I've noticed that a couple times so far. I keep hearing the servo move on its own. Something's a little funky with the electronics. The Hummer's in low gear, I got the diffs locked, and I have four-wheel steering on. Let's see how we do. Oh, hung up on the rock. Can we muscle through it? Yeah, there we go. Wow. Let's see if that low gear helps with the drag. That's a lot better. Overall, I had a good time with the H1 down at the local park. Just kind of stuck to the dirt trails, low rolling hills, turns. That's where it looked realistic and was fun to drive. But when I got into the challenging stuff, the rocks, it would just hang up. It doesn't have a ton of ground clearance to it. And what I think you need to do with this thing is, number one, take off that lower cage. Although it looks cool, it hangs up on things. It doesn't allow the chassis to slide over the rocks. And then I think you just need power steering and all-wheel drive with it. Yeah, it's got rear wheel drive. I don't think you're going to use it much. The front steering, it's a bit limited. The turning radius is kind of wide. So just keep it in those three, you know, full steering, full drive, and high speed, and you can muscle through a lot of stuff, and that's what I wound up doing. But it is a pretty capable rig. I like that it's got a lot of functionality to it. The only time I think you're going to use a low drive in this is descending hills between the low gear ratio of the transmission and actually the portal hubs. I forgot to mention that before. It's got portal hubs with metal gears on the inside. With that low gear reduction, it does have a smooth descent to it. Doesn't have a lot of drag brake in the speed controller. I did encounter an issue with it. It wasn't a huge issue. The transmitter would kind of reset every once in a while. It was so odd, so random, and it was when I wasn't using the truck for an extended period. It's got a sleep mode in it, as I was reading in the manual. Maybe it resets everything. I'm not sure what's going on there. Wasn't too big of a deal. I just had to go reset the drivetrain button, the steering button a couple times while I was driving it, but just wanted to let you guys know what I experienced with it. Now, I threw this up in the community section. There was a couple questions about it. One, are there optional tires for it? I went through a bunch of tires. I had a Tamiya Rally tire, actually with a military rim, and I've got a UTB 18 tire. They didn't work. I didn't have anything in my collection that would really work with this. There is limited suspension travel. I took the lower screw out. I'm gonna overlay a picture really quick on the screen. Once you remove the screw, there isn't a lot of down travel to the arm, so you can't put longer shocks on it. Another question was, can you put an aftermarket speed controller in? No, I didn't see a channel 2 port in the speed controller. It seems like you have to use the speed controller that's in here. And the way everything's all wired up, I don't think you could swap anything out. Another question was, what type of driver figure could you put in there? I'm not a big driver figure guy. Went through my kids' collection of action figures, found a 4-inch Superman. That was the best I could do. So I think maybe a 6-inch figure would work. Maybe G.I. Joe figures would work in there. Sorry, I don't have anything to show you guys. But yeah, this is gonna be for those, I think, that just really like Hummers. You know, it is a very detailed kit. I mean, insanely detailed kit. A lot of functionality to it. As far as upgrading it or hopping it up, I don't think a lot of people are gonna do that. I think you're just gonna have to really enjoy it as is. Like with a number of FMS vehicles, I mean, that's why they have the Power Wagon, I guess. So at the FCX24, that's their modifiable chassis. But this is a rolling model, and it does a really good job at that. I did enjoy it, and if you like what you saw, I've got links in the video description below.